In today's news, we see the police commissioner, Mr. Michael Matthews, saying that the BVI needs to take more responsibility for security, even though it falls under the UK's portfolio. Also, that we cannot continue to be naive about drug-related crimes. We also see the issue that has been causing the COVID-19 delays. Sources have said that the issue is now resolved and an official update is forthcoming. In addition to that, the BVI Ports Authority has launched its International Ferry Passenger protocols, a very detailed video we want to get into. And of course, we're wrapping up with some news on the international scene that sees 1/3 of the COVID-19 patients, or any person who would have had the virus, now developing neurological or mental disorders, according to a new study. All that and so much more on today's edition of 284 News. It's a terrific Thursday here in the British Virgin Islands, and we are so happy to be joining you for another edition of 284 News, Thursday, April 7th, that is. My name is Javon Wilson, and again, thanking you so much for making time to join us. Now, topping our headlines today, we hear word from official sources, of course, coming to our newsroom, that has confirmed that the COVID-19 test results will now be received sooner than the projected 36 to 46-hour timeline that was recently presented by the BVI Health Services Authority. Now, the delayed turnover has attracted major public criticism from current as well as potential tourists who are frustrated at the possibility of being stuck in quarantine for more than the projected 5 days under the current protocols. Now, in speaking with our newsroom yesterday, the acting chief executive officer, Mrs. Cedarine Malone-Smith, yesterday she said that she was able to confirm that the issue has indeed been resolved and that a detailed update would have followed today, April 7th. However, up to press time, no further information has been relayed to the public for consumption. Now, Mrs. Malone-Smith had recently stated that the go live of the BVI Health Services Authority's new health information system is what's responsible for the delays in persons receiving their COVID-19 test results. It was noted that the authority is currently in the process of transitioning from a dated electronic medical record, which is an EMR system, to a new and improved one. Mrs. Malone-Smith said this is necessary. This upgrade will make us more efficient in the administration of our day-to-day functioning. The upgrade will also improve our service and delivery to the BVI community. Also adding that the system upgrade will also assist in reducing delays and, of course, maintaining a high level of quality care at the public healthcare facilities. Now, despite tourists continue to speak out as it relates to the delays we've been seeing, one tourist said, and I quote, "We're headed for our 4-day test in the morning and still don't even have our day 0 results. At this rate, we won't get to do anything that we planned on, anything that can be done." That person was asking, anything can be done? And then we went on to another comment, another tourist saying, "Been wanting to visit the BVI this season via our own vessel, but that's looking like a big bust at this point. will have to wait until November, and hopefully they'll have their act together. Feel bad for the tourism industry there. They've lost out on so much this year. Now, those are just some of the sentiments being echoed. A good place to review a lot of the comments from especially the tourist community would be the BVI Alive page via Facebook, where lots of tourists mobilize to share their experiences, not just the negatives, but very importantly, the positives of not only visiting the territory, but having hopes to return. So I think it's equally important that we continue to weigh in and really zero in on their comments and their opinions relating to this issue, as well as we continue to figure our way forward as a territory. Now, moving right along, just earlier today, we had the opportunity to speak with outgoing Police Commissioner Mr. Michael Matthews, who, despite public criticism, continues to maintain that many of the recent homicides are directly related to drug operations in the territory. He said that we cannot be naive about this anymore. Listen in. Now, just before the break, I mentioned some of your comments, Mr. Matthews, and you've made some very clear comments, not only on the idea that the territory's high-profile crimes are directly connected to drugs, but you have also identified a need for us to question how residents acquire their wealth. Some people, as you know, are very offended by this, and considering, too, that some of the work some hard work, rather, has been put into building this territory. At this point, I have to ask, do you still stand by those comments? And what do you want to say to persons who think this was a blatant attempt to scandal the territory?
Well, first of all, you've got to remember what my job is. I've been hired to prevent and detect crime in this territory and oversee a force of hard-working men and women to achieve that aim. So over 5 years, you get to understand the nature of criminality very, very well in this territory. And I think we're all being very naive if we just sit there and say that everybody in this territory has gained their wealth through hard work and toil and grind. It's just simply not true. But this is not about an insult to the BV Islanders or the good, hard-working and honest people of this territory. If we want to have safety and security in the British Virgin Islands, if we want to stamp out the kind of violent crimes that we've seen recently, if we want to send a message to criminals that you're not welcome here in the BVI, then we've got to be very, very firm about what we mean in terms of legislation requirements and powers of the police and why we need them. Now, we've seized over 3 tons of cocaine, over 3 tons of cocaine, I repeat it, in just 4 months here in the territory. Now, that's not by accident. That's by hard work and detection by the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. We've also seen violent deaths, and it is very, very clear, and I've made no secret of it, that some of the homicides that we've been dealing with in recent months, and indeed in recent years, are connected to the illicit trade and the cocaine trade in particular.
We see the police commissioner is not budging on his stance, but even though we have to take that into account, he's also saying that we should not discount the honest, hard-working persons who would have contributed to the building of this territory. Listening.
Now, the vast, vast, vast majority of people living here, of BV Islanders, have built up their businesses, their wealth, their legacy through honest, hard work, hard toil, hard labour. We mustn't forget the history of the BVI. We mustn't forget the Virgin Islands and how it began. This began with slavery, a period of time that is abhorrent to me, and I'm well aware of how difficult it must be to hear a message from a British white officer talking about his acknowledgement of slavery. But that's how the community began here in the Virgin Islands. And it was the blood and sweat and toil of the ancestors of the people living here today that got the Virgin Islands to where it is today. And I take nothing away from the great-grandfathers and grandfathers and fathers and brothers and sisters who have worked hard to build up and have wonderful homes, properties, businesses and success and wealth here in the British Virgin Islands. But we're not talking about them, Joanne. We're talking about the very, very, very small percentage of people who, if anybody looks at it, is going to say, well, how have they done that? How has somebody in their early 20s got 2 or 3 houses and fast boats and flash cars? And I always say to our
Now, viewers, just after the break, we dive deeper into the commissioner's interview that was done today. He said that we have underplayed the United Kingdom's contributions to the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force and the territory, and also that the BVI needs to be more self-sufficient as it relates to security. Also, the BVI Ports Authority has rolled out its International Ferry Passenger protocols as we approach that April 15th seaport reopening date. So be sure to stick with us. There's a lot more coming your way after this commercial break.
The win.
What are the hell?
I'm freaking out.
Gender
is about these people.
It's always a pleasure coming to you live and direct from the...
What's poppin'? What's really good?
Davis has won it for the Lakers.
Gentlemen, Aspiring Gentlemen and our partners that hold us down. It's season 2 of The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, taking you on the most inspiring journey with the best and brightest distinguished gentlemen of the BVI. Raw, real-life lessons that translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded men like you've never seen them before. Governor Augustus J.U. Jaspert, Jovan Klein, Neil Klein, and so much more. Turning modern-day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen with yours truly, Ron Grant, a 284 Media production.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, lots happening on the local scene. Just today, we had the opportunity again of sitting down with the police commissioner. The commissioner has said that we have underplayed the United Kingdom's contribution to enhance the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, further adding that as a territory, we need to take more responsibility for the security enhancement in our walk to self-governance. Listen in.
And also, I think it's been underplayed exactly what the UK did after the hurricanes and the response that we did receive from the UK military and the UK police and the number of officers and personnel that came here in support of security. But of course, as the Commissioner of Police, I'll always say, well, you know, I'll always want more. And I think there is a reality here that, you know, if we are on a journey of self-determination, which I think is what our government talks about, I think there is a reality here that the United Kingdom are probably very happy for that journey to take place. But what that means is of course, is taking responsibility as a local population, as a local government, for managing the things that perhaps, you know, we asked the United Kingdom for in the past. And I will certainly say this, just to finish on this point, that I've had equal, as I mentioned earlier, equal support from the BVI government around bringing in specialists to the territory when they're needed, as I have from the United Kingdom government. So I think we're on a journey, and I don't think, you know, we'd ever be naive enough to think that we'll never want outside support or help. I don't think any jurisdiction would turn down the opportunity of expertise. Just last week, a number of us.
Now, viewers, as we know, security falls under the constitutional responsibility of the governor, who, of course, is the representative from the United Kingdom, and that is our inheritance as a British overseas territory. But today we heard the governor essentially saying that we need to be more self-sufficient. So, of course, we needed to get some more clarification on what exactly he means by that. So, listen in. A note, it makes me remember a question. You mentioned self-determination and our government moving towards that. But you also mentioned that in the same breath with doing what we can as it relates to security. I have to bring it back to the fact that security falls under the portfolio of the governor, which is the representative of the United Kingdom. It makes me remember a question being asked by someone in the community that was basically saying, being that the BVI landers or the taxpayers in the BVI support the service, the Royal Virgin Islands Police Service, is it perhaps better then that the portfolio of security be moved under the government? What are your thoughts in response to that?
Well, my experience of policing over 39 years has been that you never mix politics with policing. You don't politicise the police. And as I mentioned earlier in this interview, you know, the Commissioner of Police, above all, has to show the highest levels of integrity and impartiality. If you're placed directly under an elected government, then you're going to be directed by elected officials to do things. The Constitution, when it was written here, the latest version of the Constitution, makes it very clear of the independence of the operational decision-making of the Commissioner of Police. And I just think that's very, very important. Now, the Governor, as you say, as the United Kingdom's representative here, is responsible for security under the current Constitution. And under the current Constitution, I answer to the Governor. But that doesn't mean that we're not accountable to the elected officials and the elected government. In the National Security Council, which I believe again is formed under the Constitution, there's the Governor sits in there, but so does the Premier, the Deputy Premier, the Attorney General. And I can assure you, Joanne, over the last 5 years, the various persons that have held those posts and sat in those meetings have well and truly held me to account and have well and truly given me clear steers and directions about what their concerns and their priorities are. So I think, you know, going out, you know, as the departing Commissioner, I think it's worked quite successfully. You know, when we've had a massive crisis like the hurricanes, the Governor at the time was able to literally press the button and get all those resources here in fairly quick time, as soon as we realised the scale of what we were dealing with. And that's, you know, a helpful addition that the United Kingdom bring. But, you know, we're talking about constitutional review. Who knows what might be around the corner? At the moment, there's, I think, something like 14 British overseas territories that exist in the world. And I think in the majority of them, if not all of them, the constitutional arrangements are the same, that security sits with the United Kingdom representative.
Now, viewers, on we go. With just 9 days to go before the territory reopens the Rotown Seaport to international passengers. That's actually 8 days. The BVI Ports Authority has rolled out a very clear and detailed video that really defines the protocols that will be guiding the re-entry process. So if you're yet to watch, let's just take a look at that.
We're excited to reopen the Rotown Jetty Seaport for International Ferry Passenger service and to welcome you, our visitors and residents, in this new regular of vacationing and working with COVID-19. We would like to take this opportunity to guide you through the arrival process, as there are some new requirements and additional measures at our seaports that must be adhered to for everyone's safety. Disembarking ferry. Before you disembark, your luggage will be transferred to HM Customs at the Rotown Jetty by ferry crew members. The master of the vessel will also disembark first with the ferry documentation. The first passengers that will be allowed to disembark are the priority passengers. These include seniors, persons over 65, pregnant women, families with infants and/or toddlers, people with disabilities, members of the House of Assembly, and visiting delegates. Disembarkation will adhere to physical distancing where possible, and passengers are asked to wait aboard the ferry vessel and follow crew directions. Step 2. Arrival at the terminal. Once you've disembarked, you will be asked to sanitize your hands and have your temperature checked. Please remember to keep your mask on and maintain physical distancing when possible. There will be port officers located throughout the terminal to assist and direct you through the facility. Step 3. Health Check-in Station. All passengers will need to present valid identification at the check-in station. Health officers will be stationed here to check your identification and provide you with your COVID-19 test kit. Step 4. Testing Station. Only 2 persons at a time may enter this station. This is where you'll be given your arrival or day 0 COVID-19 RT-PCR test. Step 5. Geofencing device. You will receive your geofencing device for monitoring during quarantining and will be required to take a photo for identification purposes. Guidance on the use of the device will be provided in a subsequent announcement. Step 6. Immigration and Customs. Have your passport and other required documents ready for the authorities. Once you have cleared immigration, please collect your luggage and proceed to customs. Your bags may be subject to screening. You may be required to pay import duty, and all visitors are required to pay the environmental and tourism levy of 10 USD in cash. Step 7. Ground Transportation. Please wait for the dispatcher to direct you to your government-approved transportation. And remember, you are responsible for the taxi transfer fee. You are now ready to depart our seaport and head to your approved accommodation facility. Together, we show BVI love as we remain focused on the safety of us all. BVI Ports Authority, we're getting ready for you.
So clearly we see that this will be a controlled reentry process for our international ferry passengers through the Rotang jetty. It's important to note that this will be the only seaport that will allow for access as it relates to incoming or outgoing ferry passengers. For now, it remains the Rotang jetty. In speaking with the BVI Ports Authority yesterday, we learned that while there are plans to eventually extend to the other ferry docks, at this point, it will remain at the Rotang jetty. As we've seen from the video, there will also be a health check-in station, of course, with testing capabilities, and this is also where the geofencing devices will be applied. It's very important for us to note that there will only be one daily round-trip ferry service, and that is for the initial period with a capacity of up to 50 persons. So whoever needs to travel via the ferry must reserve a ticket, and in order to do so, you must visit the website of that respective ferry service in order to purchase your ticket. That's all we have for you as it relates to the ferries, but viewers, still ahead of the break, we see some restoration works continuing at the Ralph T. O'Neill Administration Complex. And interesting news on the international scene: 1 in 3 persons who would have had the COVID-19 virus are now reportedly experiencing neurological as well as mental disorders. And this is quite alarming as we just break down what's happening with the vaccines across the world. So stick with us. There is more after the break.
Is business slow? Cash flow down? Hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media at cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now on the local scene, we see restorative works continuing at the Ralph T. O'Neill Administration Complex as the government of the Virgin Islands works to maintain its public infrastructure. Now, the Minister for Transportation Works and Utilities, Honorable Kai Rima, said that the government has developed a comprehensive 4-pronged approach as it relates to the renovation of the complex. This, he said, includes the demolition and removal of existing building components, which includes the removal of all damaged components, which includes existing walls and floors, removal of mold-ridden items, and of course, mold remediation. Honorable Reimer also said that demolition works have been temporarily halted to allow for the relocation of the Treasury and Inland departments. So we do see lots happening as it relates to the complex. I know lots of government workers are very happy about this, just being able to work in a safe environment that is definitely conducive for work. So we want to, of course, continue to encourage the minister and his team, and hopefully soon enough that will be remedied. On the international scene, we see 1 in 3 COVID-19 survivors in a study of more than 230,000, mostly American patients, were diagnosed with a brain or psychiatric disorder within 6 months, suggesting that the pandemic could lead to a wave of mental and neurological problems, according to scientists on Tuesday. Now, researchers who conducted the analysis said that it was not clear how the virus was linked to the psychiatric conditions such as anxiety and depression, but that these were the most common diagnoses among the 14 diagnoses they looked at. Now, post-COVID-19 cases of stroke, dementia, and other neurological disorders were rarer, but researchers said this is still significant, especially in those who had severe COVID-19. Now, researchers said, and I quote, although the individual risk for most disorders are small, the effect across the whole population may be substantial. That was Mr. Paul Harrison, who is a professor of psychiatry at the Oxford University, who actually co-led this study. Now, Max Tackett, and also an Oxford psychiatric who worked with Mr. Harrison, noted that the study was not able to examine the biological or physiological mechanisms involved, but said that urgent research is needed to identify these with, I quote, with a view to preventing or treating them. Now, health experts are increasingly concerned by the evidence of higher risks of brain and mental disorders among COVID-19 survivors. A previous study by the same researchers found that last year, that 20% of COVID-19 survivors were diagnosed with a psychiatric disorder within 3 months. The new findings published in the Lancet Psychiatric Journal analyzed health records of 236,379 COVID-19 patients, mostly from the United States, and found that 34% of them had been diagnosed with a neurological or psychiatric illness within the 6 months of the study. Now, the disorders were significantly more common in COVID-19 patients than in comparison groups of people who recovered from the flu or other respiratory infections over the same time period, according to the scientists. Again, suggesting that COVID-19 had a very specific impact. Now, anxiety at 17% and mood disorders at 14% were the most common and did not appear to be related to how mild or severe the patient's COVID-19 injection had been. Now, among those who had been admitted to the intensive care with severe COVID-19, however, 7% had a stroke within 7 months and almost 2% were diagnosed with dementia. Independent experts say that the findings are very worrying. One person said, from the King's College in London, that person said that this is a very important paper. It confirms beyond reasonable doubt that COVID-19 affects both the brain and mind in equal measure. Again, that was Mr. Simon Wesley at the King's College in London. He said the impact of COVID-19 that it's having on individuals' mental health can be severe, and went on to say that this is contributing to the already rising levels of mental illness and requires further urgent research. Very interesting developments as it relates to the COVID-19 virus. Clearly, we continue to see this as, even though it's a new situation, very different developments that we have to continue to monitor as we forge forward. And especially in light of the fact that there is now a vaccine, I think these factors continue to weigh in on whether a person should or should not take the vaccines. But for now, viewers, that's all the time we have. Check us out via 284 Media and join us again tomorrow. My name is Javon Wilson, thanking you for joining us. Goodbye.